This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. I may repeat myself just because I want to make sure everybody heard that first portion, which is Bat Appreciation Month is this month, October. So you guys picked the best month to appreciate the bats, or at least learn how to do some things to help them. They've basically suffered a bad reputation over the years. I'm sure you have seen many of that horror flicks or sci-fi movies with that associated with them. However, they're actually one of the good guys, and those good guys need our help. And we are here today to learn how we can do that. Right? So they are not only pollinators of a lot of different crops and a lot of different things you probably didn't even realize, which we'll go over, but they're also an outstanding source of pest control, which sometimes that's enough. I don't know about you, but I would much rather have some bats flying around than mosquitoes biting me. I know that mosquitoes are too pollinators because they actually pick up the pollen when they go from flower to flower, but yeah. So according to Fish and Wildlife Foundation of Florida, bats around the world have been eating trillions of insects every night. And scientists say that bats save United States farmers at least about $3 million a year and reduced crop damage and their lowering of the pesticide use. So if that doesn't tell you enough, we can just simply utilize them to help us all around with crops. I know there's a picture out there that I've seen and it crosses over where you see bees, with a world without bees. Well, the same goes for bats as well. They are as important, if not more important, than some of our insect populations that pollinate. Now, for us, there's three very important interactions that they provide. I went over pollinators and insect control. Those are one of the main ones, but a lot of times people don't think about the seed dispersal that they actually do as well. They will eat and they will consume part of the flower and they will reproduce by spreading those seeds. And thankfully, that's enough sometimes. Insect-eating bat species are called insectivores, of course. They eat insects almost every single night.
Melissa, please take off your mask.
Oh, can you not hear me? I think.
Melissa, please take off your mask.
Oh, can you not hear me? Am I too far away? Am I too far away?
She can't take off her mask. She has to wear her mask.
Okay, so I'll stand kind of closer if you can hear me better that way. You guys can hear me, right?
Melissa, please take off your mask.
I can't take off my mask, I'm sorry, but I can project my voice more.
She can't take off her mask.
And the benefit of this, if anybody has their
Take off your mask.
If anybody has their mic on while we're doing this, it's probably going to cause it hard for you to hear me. So if everybody can turn their mic off, it may be easier to hear me. Is anyone else having a problem with hearing me? Use the chat and I will know. There we go. If I don't see anybody using the chat to tell me that they can't hear, then I'm good to go. I have a lot of stuff going on in the chat right now, so I'll get to those questions. Okay, just a couple questions. Okay, there we go. All right, so I hear you perfectly fine. Awesome. Okay, thank you very much for the feedback. I'm going to go back to that. Okay, slide. Yes, it's hard to hear you as you move. Okay, I'll just try to not move around so much. It is difficult to hear you. I guess it just depends on everybody's system. Well, again, this is being recorded, so it will be available. And you can basically adjust the volume as needed. So it'll be part of a library series. So back to when we refer to these insect-eating bat species, they're called insectivores. They eat every single night. They're always busy. And the benefit of this is huge in the plant life scheme. So no need to use your chemicals or toxic kind of bug pesticide products that can be actually very harmful to the environment as well as us. So bats are an effective defense in controlling these insects around our home. And so let nature's natural insect repellent take over. Fruit-eating bats also help to disperse a lot of those seeds, like I mentioned before, but not just here, in a lot of other tropical areas and rainforest. And as this seed dispersal is happening, bats not only support our local economies, but they also support the diverse wildlife population and biodiversity amongst the plant kingdom. Seed dispersal helps in other areas of the world with revitalizing forests. Here's some fun facts you may not know about bats, just to go briefly over them. I do have another program called Batty About Bats where I go into more depth about bats of Florida, but here's some cool kind of fun facts you may not have known. They're the only mammals that can fly. That's pretty cool. They can probably get to places a lot of other mammals cannot with that feature. They can live I didn't know this when I first started doing these programs, that they can actually live 20 to 40 years. That's a good long time for a small animal like that. But there are some around the world that are much bigger than our very own that are here in this state. Bats are not blind. I know that that is a common misconception, but their eyesight is actually better than ours. Bats are good to each other. They actually are community animals that help each other out, especially when it comes to safety in numbers. There are around 1,300 species of bat in the entire world. That's a lot. There's about 40, a little over 40 species of bats here in Florida. So that's a good chunk of that big number. Bats that are nectar eaters are responsible for pollinating over 500 species of plants. That is huge. And the amount of seed dispersal that's going on. So when they're talking about flying, there are some mammals you may have thought they fly, but they actually glide, and they don't. Bats are the only ones that have actual wings. Now, as far as their hearing is concerned, they use echolocation, which is really cool. It's like sound waves that bounce back and forth to each other. Their hearing is better than their vision. So you've got both hearing and eyesight in your corner. And you are most active at dusk and nighttime. Those are really good qualities to have to search out for food and to get around at night. They communicate with each other using that process of echolocation I said, and bats are very good at dispersing seeds to diversify their habitats. And a mother bat generally only has one pup, is what it's called. I said baby on there, but a baby bat is called a pup, which I think that's just simply adorable. And they are. There's actually one or a few species that have more than one pup. And did you guys know the largest bat in the world is the flying fox? They actually are ginormous. I know that's not a word, but I think that's funny. The only 3 species that are vampire bats are not known native to the United States. And some of the seed dispersals activity, the best known seed dispersals are for avocados. How many of you like avocados? Right here, guavas, mangoes, bananas, and agave. Agave is huge with seed dispersal. That's right, no bats, no agave nectar. No chocolate either. We don't think about it, but chocolate is actually a plant. And the smallest bat, let's not forget, is only the size of a penny. It's the bumblebee bat. All right, I'm trying to make sure I don't forget to cover a single brown bat. If you didn't know, from here in Florida, they can consume about 1,200 insects an hour. That is huge for such a small bat. Sometimes they share food, and that's for bats that may not have gotten anything to eat. Now, the flying fox I mentioned, that's native to South Pacific. Their wingspans can reach up to 6 feet long. And like I mentioned before, native to Thailand, the bumblebee bat, the smallest bat, weighs less than a penny and is only an inch long. All right, now species, now I mentioned I have a bat program coming up called Batty About Bats, where I go into more depth of bats of Florida. But I just wanted to spotlight this one in particular because it is endangered here in Florida. That's because its distribution is basically just down south. You'll see from the map. They're only found in Central and South Florida, and it's in areas far north as Polk County. Now, they do tend to prefer to be in pine tree cavities. They also like palms. So here's the thing, when you're landscaping and you're trying to trim certain trees, palms should actually not be trimmed for bats. They really like to hang in those bushy parts of the palms that are like just underneath the palm fronds. That gives them a nice little comfy area to kind of hang out and hide as well. They like rock crevices and they like man-made structures. AKA a bat box that you guys might have the chance to win today. They have ears that are not fully separated. Oh my gosh, they are so cute. They're called the Florida bonneted bat because their ears make them look like they're wearing a little bonnet. The largest bat in Florida, about the size of, get this guys, your standard iPhone, not those big new ones that just came out, but that's a pretty good sized bat, I think. And there's fewer than 1,000 that are believed to remain in this population. And like I said, they're mostly in South Florida. However, of that population, the largest tend to be found near, FWC has a management area that's near Punta Gorda. They are the largest insect-eating bat in North America. And wait for it, but how cute is that? What you can't really see very well in this picture is the bonnet, but if you look it up, it does look like it's kind of got a unibrow, but it's kind of like the fur in between connects the ears. So it makes it look like they're wearing a hat. But in this picture here, you can see the man-made structure of a bat box. Rounded ears do give that appearance because they kind of are folded more over, and that's where they got their namesake. And Zoo Miami is actually doing a lot of research since they're down there and into the bonneted bats in particular. So there is some good stuff going on. So we're coming on to Halloween, but there are no tricks, just treats about these bats, because without them, a lot of our agricultural products would not be available. And that includes corn, cotton, rice, chocolate, and nuts. To be more specific, macadamia and pecans, depending on where you're from. They are some of the crops that benefit from bats. This one in particular is an insect hunter and has a katydid in his mouth. And look at those ears. Can we just take a moment to appreciate those ears? Isn't they're adorable. All right, so bats and food. I mentioned this earlier. How many times have you just opened up your cupboard and taken a chance to just look at what you're providing and where to find out where it came from? Well, hopefully, knowing this, you'll kind of take a different look, a different perspective, because a lot of that comes from, thanks, bats. So some yummy fig jam do you have? Do you have a bottle of agave nectar syrup? I sure do. I love it. Or maybe some baking chocolate or any kind of chocolate. Have you ever wondered how those products and those food items may be connected to our bat friends? Nectar feeding bats are invaluable pollinators for plants of economic and ecological value. In North America alone, there are some giant cacti and agave plants that depend on plant bats for pollination, excuse me. Bats for pollination. I did it again. Bats are effective as pollinators that benefit plants for two reasons. The first one being they carry large amounts of their pollen that gets attached to their fur, and that carries on and crosses over to the other plants that they are visiting or getting some nectar from. And secondly, bats can fly long distances. Some of them fly very far and can travel to remote, inaccessible areas that no other animals can get to. But that great eyesight and the great hearing, that can take them to remote, inaccessible places. So as a result, these really cool characteristics make them effective at being pollinators. So important to so many different ecosystems that rely on them as pollinators. So when you sit down the next time for a meal, are you digging to your favorite Halloween candy this time of year? Consider that there's a very good chance that these bats somewhere in the world had something to do with how you got that food or how the food got there. Believe it or not, many of the foods found in our grocery store shelves and also in our pantries are products of the bats' actual interactions that they have with nature. Now, on to how we invite them into our environment and our backyards or wherever we have to plant for them. Well, first of all, to encourage bats to dine in your yard, you need to have a few things. Just like us, they need water. So some sort of water source, such as a bird bath. In addition, plant what they like. So night fragrant flowers help to attract night insects, which they eat. This can also help. Now, many other bats, aside from some of the ones I mentioned, eat other things, but we're focusing on the ones that eat pollen and are nectar eaters. These bats are vital for pollinating the flowers and spreading the seeds that grow new plants and trees, and they can do the work of planting for you. So you can get started and then seed dispersal. Wow, you'll see maybe some other plants just popping up and they're doing all the work for you. So why not invite them? Some gardeners have to be careful though, because there are some plants that you'll need to avoid, and I'll get to those. Most bats in North America do eat insects, to include moths, beetles. Some eat aquatic insects and flies. So guess what? You're providing a water source. You may get some flies or mosquitoes, maybe even some other insects that these bats would love to eat. And I mentioned before, but I just think it's awesome that a single bat can eat up to its body weight in insects in a single night. Eating all of these insects also helps to protect the farmer's crops, and it also manages many, many dollars each year. So to put it in perspective, it's better to let them help us and invite them than to not have them come and then we have to lose production of farm products. So a water source, it doesn't have to be elaborate. It's just maybe a bird bath that you already have, or you could also have a man-made waterfall or stream. Or if you are already next to a water source that's close by to you, that's already there, you may not even have to worry so much about it. It just depends. Be sure to have it accessible or at least nearby. That way you'll have a more likelihood of having them visit your yards. If you do, however, opt to make one yourself, like with the bird bath or the waterfall option, please be sure that the water doesn't have any added unnecessary chemicals in it. So be aware of the source of the water. The more natural your backyard is far better for our little bat friends. So here are some ideas in case you're wondering, what do I plant to help invite these bats? These are some examples of fragrant or night blooming flowers. These are beautiful flowers, and I'm going to see if I can't bring up the gallery to show you a picture. And oh, no problem. Yes. Not the bougainvillea. It also, right. Yeah, I mean, I can understand too because it's brightly colored and it's fragrant, but it is not amongst the list as far as, okay, so I'm gonna see if I can pull up that picture so that you can maybe, okay, so I'm going to hop on here to see if I can pull up, bear with me, I have the website as to, hold on one second. Because I do have some documents I handed to the folks in person that are here, but I can send them to you with all the names and everything of what these fragrant, and this is evening primrose. I don't know if you've ever heard of evening primrose, but oh, do you? Well, yeah, well, there you go. That's it. This one's called, I think this is absolutely beautiful. This one's Royal Catchfly. And I got this off of Hawthorne Hill Wildflowers blog. It is also called Royal Fire Pink. It is extremely rare in Florida, however, and it's only naturally found in Jackson County, almost close to the Georgia border. But despite its rarity, it is not currently listed in Florida. So perhaps it is more abundant in the states that are just north of us and throughout other areas. But it's breathtaking sight when it's in full bloom, as you can see. And the rich crimson red flowers are very attractive. And it's actually got a long flowering season. It occurs in late summer to early fall and lasts for several weeks for your enjoyment and the bats. It is a hummingbird pollinator flower as well. And although butterflies and bees sometimes attempt to nectar from it, it is classic for the hummingbirds mostly, but bats love it as well. For most of the year, it's not noticeable at this stage, but it is still a tough plant to grow, just with that being said, and because it's rare. You might have a little bit of hard time to finding it. But a lot of flower databases you can put in, and I can give you one of their websites from the Florida Wildflower Foundation. You can plug in what plants you want to find, and it'll pull up the local nurseries that have it. And if they don't have it, you can contact them and they might be able to get it for you. This one's another one. This is absolutely beautiful. And it's an aster family. And I'm going to have to pull up this website because whenever we get done, I'll go over all the names. I just want to show you them real quick. And this is very pretty too. This is, I believe, Morning Glory, if I'm not, or no, Datura. It's hard to pronounce. Datura. And notice the shape. They really like, kind of like hummingbirds. They really like that funnel, deep funnel cone shape so that they can get in there and they can take their tongue and lap up the nectar. And then we have, this is Moonflower. How beautiful is that? So pretty, so vibrant. It's, and since bats are nocturnal, these night blooming flowers kind of makes sense to have them out when the bats are most active. Don't also forget, if you can do so, to plant fragrant flowers and herbs. The smell of these plants can also help to lure the bats into your garden. Careful not to use cinnamon, eucalyptus, or peppermint. Those are bat deterring plants. And I kind of can understand why. They're, especially the peppermint and eucalyptus, are really strong. So be careful to avoid putting those in your garden in particular. Try also, here's some other suggestions. Dahlia on the left, I believe, and we have, I think I showed you one of these already. And then in the next slide, we have French marigolds on the right and honeysuckle. Honeysuckle is very good. The French marigolds also, they act as an insect repellent for some not so great insects that you want to keep out of your garden. We also have, if you can find, raspberry bushes, which they can survive here. I do have a friend of mine who has grown raspberry bushes in her own yard. And thyme. Thyme is a little touchy. You know, it's kind of, I can't grow thyme. I've tried to, but I might just not be doing the right thing. So if you can, thyme is one that's very good. And here's some more suggestions. Depending on what your situation is, a back garden does tend to become a long-time investment. They need all of us to use, as much as we can, available green spaces. But even if you're in a small apartment, condo, wherever in the city, you can have planters that are containers that could be used to attract bats as well. So wherever you are, there are options. And if you plant short native plants in pots on decks or window boxes, those are also options for there to be a bat coming by and paying you a visit. So I like this picture. This is one I can kind of share with you as to a banquet for the bats. There's all sorts of choosing to pick from in this actual brochure. Some of which I've already gone over that you can see on this slide. And of course, they need a home and a place to raise their young. And there are many different designs of bat houses. It really just depends on the main designs are, you don't want to go too big or too small. You want to go just right. Choose designs for the species that actually live in your area. So kind of find out what bats you think live in your area and then cater to that size. We have a wonderful organization known as Bat Conservation International. which I did actually give you guys here some plans for bat box options. Bat boxes do provide a cozy little enclosed safe area that's protected from the rain and outdoor elements. They generally are made of wood, which the most successful ones are. Just be careful if you're going to paint them that Bat Conservation has the guideline as to what colors, and they actually do it by state and area. And ours tend to be brown, light brown, because black is just way too hot in our sun, no matter if you do face it, which they do suggest not facing it towards the sun, kind of to the side. Yes. Well, I was just going over that, and they recommend, for the most part, try to get a lighter color. They tend to like to go with more natural colors because it's kind of, if you get darker, it's going to absorb heat more. So light browns, maybe a darker brown. They generally are made out of wood, but they can also be made with plastics and metals. I don't know about the metal in our particular area because that would get pretty hot. Choose the most, location is everything. What Bat Conservation International has suggested for the most part is if you do decide to add a bat house, you need to know if you've got the bats, and if you can go out and see where their flight pattern is, you can kind of put yourself in the center of that flight pattern, and that's where your bat house should be, because that's the way they travel around and search. Mounting the bat house on a pole or the side of a building is kind of hard, because if they've got a building or a tree versus a bat house, they're probably going to go with the more natural part, like the tree. That's why they say tree mounted, kind of a no-no, because they're going to pick something that's more natural. And they're also more easier to be accessed by predators when they're on a tree. And it doesn't offer too much, it offers too much shade. They actually do need a height. There are certain guidelines as to how high you need to put the bat box. And at least 15 feet is that height. For them to fly away without running into a predator on their downward journey, they need to have a drop down kind of area. So 15 feet kind of gives them that drop down. Kind of think like if you're in a plane, you need a little bit more space before you slow down or speed up. So bats also like narrow, tight spaces to call their home, similar to the space between a tree trunk or a crevice and its bark. Since they don't build nests like birds, they won't need the room for nesting materials. Basically, if you're going to design a nursery type bat house, what's in that bat house is enough material based off those designs that they won't need to bring their own nesting material in. Instead, ensure ideal temperature is another thing. Bats prefer warmer climates anywhere between 85 and 100 degrees, roughly. They suggest positioning the home facing south to southeast. That way, the bat house catches heat and warms up when the sun rises, and that's not as hot of sun than when you get into the middle of the day or beyond. It does provide safety against dangerous predators, but that last part, do a routine security check, is important because you want to not have predators taking over, and inspect it regularly. They say spring to early fall. You want to be careful with the inspecting too, because you don't want to discourage them from going in there and disrupting them, because then you can scare them away too. So that kind of spring to early fall is your window of opportunity. But you also want to make sure there's no bees or wasps, because that could actually do a lot of harm. I mean, you love the bees, but they're going to take up the space, and the bees will be there, and they don't go together. You know your bat home is a success when the bats have taken up residence and you see droppings, which is the best fertilizer. It's called black gold guano that you can use. And this is a picture of one of the 3 bat houses. If you have not had a chance to go to University of Florida on their grounds, they have 3 huge bat houses. And I'm going to be showing, the next slide is going to be showing a video where I have taken my family twice now, and it is mesmerizing to see the bats emerge from these bat houses. So I'm going to try to play the video if it cooperates. There we go. Give it a second. Won't let me play. If not, I could just go to the actual website and show you. It's okay. Bear with me. But here are some additional resources, 3 of which are University of Florida, the Florida Museum, as well as Florida Bats Conservancy, Florida Bats Conservancy. That's also a big one, and FWC as well. So I'm going to minimize this so that I can show for you that bat video, because for some reason it just didn't want to play. Or if I can go on here and I can get it to play. Let's see, because it's so cool. Okay, play from current slide. All right. Sometimes, I know, it's persnickety. Okay, so let's see. There's other ways to do this. And I am going to show you, here we go, just like this. We can go around and search for bat houses. Gainesville. There we go. Oh, aren't those guys cute? Okay, we're gonna go here and this. Present. They go out synchronized, like it's like synchronized swimming. They kind of know when to go. There's 3 of them. They just added another one just recently. And they're off. Oh, let's see. We can stop it and see if they can see it. Let's see. The thing about it is I have to minimize what I'm doing and then go back and see. Can you guys see the video? Let me know. No? Okay, I'll try it again. Let's see. I gotta reshare my screen, I think. Let's see if they can see what I'm seeing. All right, oh, it stopped sharing, that's why. Okay, we're gonna go back here and see if they can see that. Bear with me for a second.